folks, racism gets it done.
Racism.
If you are ever encountering a problem that you think is insurmountable, employ racism. Racism will get it done.
Any problems like maybe not quite high speed rail, but I guess you could say cross country public transportation.
Nationwide
transportation.
If you employ racism, it won't be. Not everybody will be able to make use of this service, but
exactly
the people of color that you don't want in your state will be able to use it.
Absolutely.
And we're bringing this up because in Texas, actually, I got a headline from the Associated Press. They said Texas buses 75 migrants to Chicago in political battle. And this is following up on a story we talked about a couple of months ago, where Greg Abbott said because Joe Biden is letting so many immigrants into the country, he's going to start having to he's going to start busing those immigrants from Texas to other states so they can deal with them. Those Democrat cities can deal with them.
You know, something he did to cover up for his, $2 billion loss from holding up border crossings so much for his ramped up inspections that found nothing and did nothing except cost us money.
Yeah. And see, when we first talked about this story, I brought it up because it was so outrageous, and I thought he was just, being a racist dickhead.
Exactly.
He was just saying it,
throwing it out there.
Yeah, I thought he was just jumping on the, Joe Biden hasn't locked down our country enough or hasn't built the border up enough rhetoric. I thought he was jumping on the Democrats are letting immigrants flood our cities rhetoric.
Yeah.
But he meant it.
He really did.
He's actually sending immigrants from Texas to places like New York and Chicago.
And it's actually crazy because we love to talk about how, we'll talk about at the end of this pod, how conservatives, one of their favorite tactics is to take a government-like system, right? A government function, intentionally defund it behind the scenes or make it more shitty, and then say, well, that's the fault of Democrats. Look, government is bad. Look, it's these Democrat-run cities that are causing all the problems, when they have actually taken what they think is the problem and pushed it into Democrat-run cities.
Right. And that's the thing here is that I don't think immigrants crossing the border into the United States is by necessity a bad thing.
No, absolutely
I don't think
not.
it's a moral hazard, and I don't think it's a general crime hazard for anybody that may, live around people that are entering the country. I don't think it's a real problem, but they do. And them sending immigrants to another country, shouldn't that be terrorism?
No, facts.
You know what I mean?
They get on the airwaves all the time and say these immigrants are dangerous people. They are MS-13 gang members. They are going to flood fentanyl and drugs and heroin into your community. Something that Trump accused Fetterman of doing at his PA rally. Interesting side note. But they are going to funnel these things into your community. They are going to rape your women. They are going to murder, cheat, steal, carjack, maybe, if you will. Nice little callback. And then they just push it over to another city.
Yeah, they're gonna kill you and rape your family. Let's send them to Chicago. Chicago, a place that they already accuse of having too much crime.
Let's send them to New York and D.C.
Greg Abbott's like, I know that I got elected to be a governor of a border state, and I, when getting elected, passively agreed to handling the problems that come along with living on a border state, but I'm going to send this problem somewhere else because I'm a conservative and I don't like to deal with problems in front of me.
Love that.
It's fucking insane. And by the way, generally, I support a transportation system that would get immigrants to whatever place in the country they want to go. Because usually when people come into the country, they're looking to join family members or engage in specific job opportunities that may be in a certain location throughout the country. I support getting them where they want to go.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a transportation system fueled by racism to get less brown people in Texas.
It's a little malicious. Malicious. It's like you almost got the right answer, but did all of the wrong work.
Maybe this is like reverse replacement theory. You know what I'm talking about? Because we always dunk on great replacement theory or white replacement theory because it's dumb and not real. But maybe this is them thinking it's real and reacting to it and getting the people of color out of Texas so there's less voters voting for who they assume will be the Democratic Party.
Ooh, maybe, unless you're Steven Crowder, because Steven Crowder had a banger of a tweet. I believe it was last week. We retweeted and quote tweeted it, but I know most of you don't follow Twitter just based on the raw numbers.
It's messed up.
Where this guy said, Hispanics are coming through the border. The tagline was Hispanics or Latinos are keeping Texas red. Because, Texas is trending more blue. There was a little bit of worry during the 2020 election, but really not much. Anyway, he was saying that actually, so it's the first generation of Hispanic immigrants. They came over here and they were voting Democrat because the Democrats promised them all of these things, all of this money, they could leash off the government. And then the second generation are the people that realize, actually, this isn't what we were promised. And they're the conservatives. As if I can't necessarily speak for the Hispanic community, but every single Vietnamese person I know that fucking came over here from Vietnam as a conservative stayed a conservative,
right,
or just got more fucking conservative. No one got converted because they realized they were duped. In fact, a lot of immigrants that come over here, the blinders are so over their eyes with the American dream propaganda that runs rampant that they can't. It's a sunk cost fallacy.
And isn't it always right-wingers that are talking about how the American dream is real?
Exactly.
And how you can do anything if you just work hard enough. And it's usually people on the left saying, no, we've never actually realized that ideal. Yeah. We've never actually gotten to a point where everyone is free enough and has enough material resources to engage in that reality.
Like, it's that right-wing rhetoric that got them here. And you think they're Democrats? Like, really? Like, he can't admit that they're not, or else it destroys all of their narratives. And another funny thing that this dude said, he said they're Catholic by tradition, not by faith.
Yeah, of course. They're not real Christians, people.
Okay.
They can't be real Christians. They're not
brown.
White, after all.
they're not the same color that Jesus is, historically. White.
Anyways, if you're ever in doubt, you need to solve a problem, racism.
It's like how Bill Gates said, hire the laziest person to get the job done. I would like to counter that. Hire the most racist person to get the job done.
You'll get there. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Top of the show, Dark Brandon strikes again. That's the theme of today's episode.
This whole month, Dark Brandon has been going nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Buck wild.
And to top off the end of August, beginning of September, he's gone even more nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy speech. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Before we get into it, we have two special announcements to make. You may recall at the beginning of every episode, I'm always telling you all to go buy some merch, headintheoffice.com.
That's right. You know you got to.
And I'm still going to tell you to do that because we got a special promo going on right now. 15% off everything in the Head in the Office store if you use promo code HITOBOYS. That's HITOBOYS.
This is a certified hood classic.
Oh, yeah.
All capital, HITOBOYS. Get in while the promo still lasts. Not going to be there forever, so go check out the Hito store. And another special announcement, I said we got two, if you were paying attention.
That's right.
P.O. Box. We got it now.
We got the smallest one to save money because we got it out of necessity to ship out those mugs. Should be on the way. We got it the smallest one out of necessity. So if you do want to send us anything, can't be too big.
Yeah.
Can't be too big, can't be too huge.
Keep in mind it's got to be kind of small, but information for the P.O. Box will be in the description or in the show notes, whatever platform you're listening on. So check that out. If you want to send us some fan mail, you can do that now.
Go for it.
We're becoming real content creators.
Oh my God.
The dream is being actualized. We are engaging in the American dream.
Now smash that like button.
Exactly. And of course, I'll remind you all, check out the Patreon, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Discord. Become a member of the Hito community, if you will.
We even got a Minecraft server.
Yeah, we got a large, thriving community. I keep forgetting to mention, we have a Reddit page. I keep
true.
To mention that. We still haven't followed up with the guy who had us up about that. But the unofficial Head in the Office Hito page is it's there. It's out there. Go check it out. Engage in the Hito community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're a big tent. We're a big coalition of people.
Discord's real fun.
Exactly. Today's episode, we're going to talk about Dark Brandon, as I mentioned. We're talking a little bit about elections. We're going to talk about working until you die.
That's right.
Literally.
Flex.
And we'll top off the show with, what is it, Jackson, Mississippi?
A little bit of racism.
Okay.
A little bit of racism. A lot of bit of a lack of water.
Racism does get it done after all.
Facts.
Does get it done. But before we get into all of that, we're going to read our 1 5-star review. If you want to help support the show, if you want to have your review read on the show, go leave a 5-star review at Apple.
A lone soldier standing there beyond no man's land, reviewing when no one else will.
Exactly.
Apparently.
Hero of democracy. So we have subject line, Jolly Good Show by Psych. They say, I've been a silent patron for the last 6 months, but now that I'm living alone, I'm going to become one of the broke boys for a bit. So I thought I would leave my 5 stars until I pull myself from my bootstraps and become a titan of industry again.
I suppose it's acceptable.
Yeah.
I suppose I can accept that reasoning.
I understand, and I wish you the best as you take on the market. Brother.
As someone who is also cooking all of their own food now, I understand the struggle.
Exactly. Chicken breasts, rice and vegetables every single dinner.
Chicken breast, rice, veggies, a bag of peas that you can throw in the microwave. Just bam.
Exactly. Got to get those quick dinners, and we thank you for leaving the review.
Exactly.
You're doing your best,
exactly.
And we love you. If you want to have your review read, Head in the Office on Apple Podcasts. Do it.
You know exactly what to do. Please.
Getting right into our news coverage, though, we got to start off with a Dark Brandon speech.
Probably the funniest thing that happened this week.
Oh yeah,
we're seeing everyone in the party mauled over Dark Brandon and his speech, and Sarah Palin taking a fat L in Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get to Sarah Palin.
Absolutely.
But before we dive into this Dark Brandon coverage, I do want to say I've noticed that we've had a small uptick in listeners recently. of our weekly episodes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And based on the rhetoric that I've seen coming from Joe Biden over the last few weeks, I have to believe that uptick is White House officials.
Absolutely.
I gotta believe that they're listening to the pod.
They're taking all our advice. They probably didn't discover us for like a little bit. Probably took them about like a year to discover us. And around a couple months ago, we got that little boost at like 1,100, 1,200 now. And now he's using the bully pulpit?
That's what I'm saying.
Finally?
You may notice that like everything we've been talking about, with legislation, employing some strategy, calling out Republicans, being direct and upfront about our threats to democracy, he's doing it.
He is.
And I can't help but myself when I say that I think Joe Biden's taking notes.
To be fair, he's not doing it nearly enough. He could listen to a few more episodes. He could get prescribed a few more episodes of Hiddo.
Yeah,
so we can start just absolutely just railing him.
Right. And, do I think that Joe Biden's got his little AirPods in listening to Head in the Office in the Oval Office? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. He's doing that.
It's like Donald Trump had the Coke button. He's got the Hiddo button.
And they bring him his AirPods on a tray and his little iPhone, and then he puts it in and he listens. But I also think that his staffers are listening much more intently.
Got to.
And they're literally taking notes and taking our lines and putting them in his speech.
I know one of you are a White House staffer.
We're on to you.
Ooh.
Put us on your payroll. We'll work for the FBI.
You're the mole for us, like Jared Kushner is the mole for the FBI and the Trump raid.
And you probably know that because you're a part of the executive branch, just like the FBI. If you ever want to come on the show as a guest and reveal that information, we'll get the exclusive.
If you want to take Brandon and bring him on the show, I will take that.
Yeah. Anyway, enough speaking the truth. Thursday night, Dark Brandon, he gave a speech in Philadelphia, the heart of democracy, where our democratic project began. And you may have seen the photos. They've been all over the internet. Specifically the one of Joe Biden in front of the red background with his fists up in the air, with the Marines behind him holding their weapons.
Yes.
Conservatives have been losing their mind over that.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll get to conservatives losing their mind. But I want to jump into a little bit of the summary of the speech first, so we can go over what we liked, what we didn't like, etc.
Before we jump into the summary, I just want to say, like, he made specific emphasis when he first started his speech. Say, we're here in Philadelphia at the Hall of Independence or something shit like that. He's like, this is where the Declaration of Independence was signed, right? This is where our founding fathers realized the vision for this country, and then went on to say that Americans should never accept violence as a means of pursuing
just a political tool,
as a political tool, when in fact you are at the place where the violence of the Revolutionary War, the terrorism the founding fathers engaged in was codified. America is fundamentally built on political violence to achieve what you want. I just thought that was funny and ironic.
Yeah, I mean, of course every country is, right?
Yeah,
every country is built on some amount of violence because the borders that we have on our countries are necessarily enforced by violence.
Exactly.
Right? The existence of borders implies a sort of violence. But anyways, getting right into the summary here. A lot of conservatives, they tried to label him as fascist and divisive for the speech, like fascist specifically. They tried to call him fascist.
Wild.
Spoiler alert.
No, you.
They're wrong. They're wrong. Anyway, the summary of the speech is probably like, he started off very clearly. He was going to talk about the real threats to democracy. He was going to go on about what we needed to do. He already prefaced this at the very beginning. As Gage said, he's very pro-America to start off.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of national pride, lots of, we need to answer the call, freedom calling, who's picking up, that kind of thing.
Baby.
I don't know how any conservatives can, disagree with this opening. Because it is very nationalistic. Not in like a fascist sense, but nationalistic in a way that's just like, I love America.
It's nationalistic in the way that he's like, yeah, Jack, you can't love America only half the time when your guy wins, Jack.
Right.
And then he goes like, he says, America is fundamentally built on equality and something else. And this is where I think it's funny. Hop a little bit of narratives, jump around a little bit. Ben Shapiro was mauling about this. I would implore you all to go watch his video reacting to the speech and his video covering the speech, because he said, he's like, America actually was not built on freedom and equality and democracy. It was built on something and republicanism. And I was like, you're literally just capping right there.
The Republican Party didn't exist, big dog.
Yeah. and then Ben said, when Joe Biden says equality, what he actually means is equity. And what he means by equity is equality of outcome. And he was just wrong twice.
Yeah.
Like, verifiably wrong twice. For someone who's always, who's popularized the rhetoric, well, what is a woman? Can you show me the definition of a woman in a dictionary and tell me that it's whatever you want? No, that's not what it is. It's a biological female. For someone so pedantic with that, you'd think he would just look up the definition of equity.
Yeah.
And then anything else.
I love that narrative, especially from Ben Shapiro, because he's like, America wasn't built on equality, and that's good. You know what I mean? Like, we were a slave state to begin with, and that's exactly how it should have been. like that's the hill you're gonna die on, big man.
Really, this is all you have. The commentary you have to extend. He's reaching.
Yeah,
he's reaching.
Yeah. Pretty quickly, Joe Biden, he calls out MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump, but he also very quickly stipulates that he's not talking about Republican voters. Yeah. He even says, like, I don't think a majority of Republicans are MAGA. Obviously, I think he's embellishing a little bit. I think most Republicans are MAGA at this point.
But I think this
is an optical thing he kind of has to do.
Exactly. He's got to do it. Trump's approval rate was 90% throughout his presidency within the Republican Party. They're all MAGA.
But by MAGA Republicans, he's very clearly talking about elected officials, people with power that blindly follow Donald Trump and believe anything that he says.
And the type of people who are going out and going to storm a Capitol on a Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Those are the kinds of people he's talking about. By MAGA, Joe Biden's talking about those with an ideology that necessarily contains the willingness to undermine fundamental rights that we've had for decades and overturn democracy itself. Like that, those are the people he's talking about. And it's obviously true. Many Republicans right now that are running or have won their primaries or even have won special elections, general elections before, they are people who openly want to undermine democracy. You've got Kari Lake in Arizona. You got Blake Masters in Arizona. Arizona's struggling. Shout out, y'all. You've got a couple of candidates for Secretary of States across the country, including our one in Michigan that thinks that the 2020 election was stolen.
The entirety of the Pennsylvania GOP primary running on, their election was stolen, but not mine.
Exactly.
Not mine.
I mean, and you have people that are now arguing that Sarah Palin had the election stolen from her because Democrats rigged it.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get there, but it's like, a lot of people in the Republican Party, elected officials, are saying that the 2020 election was stolen. There's no evidence of that. They want to overturn democracy.
They're just lying.
Yeah, they're just making it up. He says MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy, and he's right. If your ideology, by necessity, contains that you have to overturn election results if they don't go your way, you are anti-democracy.
Or if your ideology is just straight up that democracy is mob rule, like people are just flat out starting to say. Ben Shapiro is starting to say it. I believe Steven Crowder has said some dumb shit like that. That's their new line. They're adopting more and more of the libertarian line. They're saying democracy is mob rule. So you'd rather have minority rule.
Right, exactly.
Well, okay.
Right, because what's the alternative to what you call mob rule?
And by the way, have what less people want.
Mob rule is just like some made-up term to try to insult what democracy is. Obviously, that's not true.
No.
Because, like, if you don't have a democracy, what's the alternative, right? You want an oligopoly, aristocracy, you want, like, a monarchy? What do you want? Because if it's not democracy, if it's not everyone ruling for themselves and ruling together, then what is it?
Yeah.
It's not a system that the average person has political power. It's a system where elites have political power and control the freedoms of those below them.
They just want feudalism back.
Right, yeah, exactly. They just want feudalism. Joe Biden continues to hammer home on the unity narrative, although a lot of Republicans tried to say that his speech was anti-unity. A lot of Republicans were pointing out, especially on Twitter, because for context, I didn't listen to the speech until 2 days after.
I listened to it on my way here.
Right, so I didn't really know what they were talking about off rip. Like they were like live reacting, they were live posting to the speech, saying how this is like so divisive, so anti-unity. I thought we were promised unity when Joe Biden got elected. And they were trying to say that he was being anti-unity, but he was saying we need to unite Americans against threats to our democracy.
There was even...
I don't know how this is really fundamentally different to what he said before.
Yeah, there was even Homeboy posted up protesting as he was speaking with the megaphone, shouting like, fuck Joe Biden or some shit like that. And he goes, I respect his right to protest. Like, he can go do that. Just the most bland milquetoast thing ever.
Right, which is the complete opposite of what Donald Trump would have ever said, which is kick that guy out.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a Trump rally and someone's protesting him, they kick him out.
Yeah.
But with Joe Biden, he acknowledged it, which I thought he did a really good job here. He acknowledged it and said, like, yeah, you are against me. You have a right to be outrageous. Nobody is silencing you. How is this anti-unity? And it gets into the paradox of tolerance, which I'll talk about a bit more. But you can't have a democracy with people who are anti-democracy. You can't have freedom with people who are trying to take your freedoms away. You can't unite with those people. And Joe Biden's argument, ever since he was running in the general election, was that we need to unite against threats to our country and protect our country. That's all it's ever been. I don't know how this is any different than what he's already said.
It's just you can't fundamentally engage with someone who's willing to spit in the face of any empirical evidence.
Right.
If someone is just not willing to accept the outcome of election based on just who won it, then you can't do anything about that based on what party won. How do you engage it anyway with that meaningfully?
Yeah, and a bit later on, he had a quote on that specifically. He said, democracy cannot survive if one side believes that there are only two outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. Like, and that's true.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have a democracy with people that fundamentally believe any outcome that doesn't favor them was somehow rigged. And Trump was saying this before the 2022 or the 2020 elections. He was saying that if we don't win, then it must have been rigged. That kind of ideology is a disease for democracy. It is infectious.
I love how people called Ben Shapiro again, just
wet ass P word.
Oh, wet ass P word Ben. Ben wet ass P word Shapiro.
And he was calling Joe Biden a demagogue. He said, "Look at this demagoguery," as if that's not just what Trump was.
Yeah.
Like the entirety of not only is conservatism, again, Obama era culture war, it is just no you. They are just devolving into no you politics.
And I don't understand how this is demagoguery to acknowledge real threats to our country domestically.
Yeah.
And say like, yeah, we need to fix that. How is is this not what every politician does? How is this demagoguery? At least Joe Biden's not going like, oh my God, the brown people crossing the border in Texas are the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Joe Biden's not saying, look at these dirty MS-13 gang members.
They're going to rape you.
Yeah. They're going to fucking rape you and kill your children. He's not doing any of that like Trump was. And that's the funniest thing about more reactions from the right is that people are flooding the comment section of the whatever video we have linked in the show notes.
The C-SPAN?
The C-SPAN video. They have the comments open. People are flooding the comment sections talking about nowhere. And on Twitter, no time in American history has anyone ever come at their political opponents like this. Like, yes, they have.
Abraham Lincoln.
Every time. Every time. I saw someone say that this was the most divisive speech in American history.
And I said, Shapiro.
More so than Abraham Lincoln's?
Right.
More so than when he freed the slaves and started a civil war?
Right. No, like these Republicans would literally have been back in that time. Of course, they wouldn't have been Republicans back then.
After the Civil War?
They would have been back when Abraham Lincoln was president and been like, oh my God, he's so divisive. What is he doing?
Oh
he's
my
being
God.
a demagogue.
Can you believe the Emancipation Proclamation?
It's so divisive. It's so authoritarian to free people.
I've seen people say that this makes him the worst president ever. Worst?
Yeah.
Worst?
Andrew Jackson, brother?
Jackson? Come on now.
Come on. Use a little bit of critical thinking. It'll actually benefit you quite a bit. Biden then, of course, gets into saying, as we talked about previously, that violence is not an acceptable political tool. And I think he was specifically saying this in response to people like Lindsey Graham, who have been on Fox News recently, saying that if Trump gets arrested for stealing documents from the White House, then there's going to be riots in the street. He said something like they're all but calling for violence at this point, which is, of course, true. And I'm glad he called them out for that. But also, this gets to the point where it's like, Republicans are calling him fascist for everything that he said in this speech, but a fascist wouldn't say repeatedly, don't do violence.
Oh, yeah.
A fascist would not over and over again say, like, we need to do things through the correct means. We need to never employ political violence.
Exactly. Just a pure electoralism, baby.
Right.
Win at the ballot box. Go out and vote, vote, vote.
Because, we've talked about if Trump is, like, full fascist or not proto-fascist. But even just saying, even if we just say, okay, he wasn't full fascist, the Trump modus operandi was always never call for direct violence, but insinuate that, like, if you did it, you're doing it justifiably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Joe Biden is here saying, never do political violence. If you do it, you are morally wrong.
Yeah.
And he's saying that for across the aisle.
Which is kind of,
well, yeah, of course.
You know how it goes.
Well,
you know
yeah,
how it goes. But anyway, it's like, I heard that. And again, I'm gonna invoke his name again. Ben
wet ass P word
Shapiro.
Said from his mouth.
Said from
The
his
horse's
mouth.
mouth.
I'm sorry. I watched the video right before I got here, and it just baffled me. It had me flummoxed the whole fucking time. He's just spitting the most absolute nonsense. After Joe Biden started talking about violence, he said, Joe Biden is on here talking about how we should never do violence. He knows this is some malicious trick. He knows that if he says this, the people on the right are going to commit violence, and he's going to use that to run again in 2024.
That's
Ben, what the you're Simone Biles in your head doing the mental gymnastics. Like it's crazy.
No, that's nuts. I've seen that take too. It's like, oh, Joe Biden's trying to coax us into doing violence. So
by telling us not to do violence, he's gonna make me go.
Right, like if you go and do violence after hearing a Joe Biden speech, that's on you, big dog. Like it's not illegal to think about violence, but if you're gonna go and harm other people, break shit, like you're doing a crime.
Exactly.
Like Joe Biden's not coaxing you into doing violence. It's the same argument of when they're like, yeah, there were FBI agents in the crowd of January 6th trying to get them to do violence.
Oh, it's a honeypot.
It's like you have autonomy, brother. You are in control of your actions. Like you don't have to, beat the shit out of a police officer.
You don't have to do any of that.
Right.
Honestly,
you really do not have. Like you're knowingly breaking the law. Joe Biden's not making you do it.
It's just like I can't understand the way that the conservatives have just been devolving over this past month too. The conservative rhetoric has just gone downhill because This past month, Joe's been getting it done.
Yeah.
Dark Brandon's been rising.
Well, no, it's because I think, and like before we get to the end, I think the speech was very good. I think it was one of Joe Biden's best
I
overall,
thought it was great.
at least in comparison to others. But conservatives are losing their minds right now, and the whole narrative is unraveling because they actually have a real ideological opponent at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's all Joe Biden. You can question if he's really sincere about everything that he says, if he really means it. But if we just look at the content of the speech, he is very clearly opposing everything that Republicans stand for. And I think a lot of Republicans were counting on Democrats just being insanely weak for them to get what they want done.
Oh yeah, I think that Republicans were counting on them being able to adequately run obstruction for his whole term, but they haven't. And to have that plan just crumble right before the midterms as well. Like, Joe Biden is the strongest he's ever been legislatively. His approval rating's going nuts. It's on the rise again, even though it's still pretty low. It's going nuts again. And he's going crazy.
I think part of it is that conservatives overextended here.
Absolutely.
Like, you can always say that conservatives are being fucking stupid because, like, inherent to their ideology is stupidity and contradictions. But when it comes to, like, Roe v. Wade stuff, access to contraception, same-sex marriage, and, like, the slew of other things Democrats tried to propose, I think they way overextended.
Oh, yeah.
Which in a lot of voters' minds justified a reaction from Democrats that is furious and fighting for more. And that got a lot of people angry at conservatives, at the Republican Party, who should be favored right now. Like, Democrats are favored to win the Senate.
Like, dog.
That's crazy.
Y'all lost Alaska.
Yeah.
Alaska has been deep red. It is one of the most rural states in the country.
Right.
Deep red. And y'all lost.
And then not because Democrats stole it, but because you all are running terrible campaigns, running on issues that nobody thinks is popular.
And I thought we ran bad campaigns.
Yeah, no, conservatives are losing it, absolutely losing it, because Joe Biden's like, they're pushing back. Democrats are pushing back.
They're doing political strategy, finally. Right. For the first time in forever.
Imagine if we took this Joe Biden speech and applied it across the Democratic Party. Like, imagine if every Democrat, and this is what I hope happens, is that every Democrat takes cues from the tone and the tenor and the anger that Joe Biden had during that speech and starts using it for themselves. Usually the president can set the tone for the rest of the party, and I hope that's what happens, because if all the moderate Democrats, like not Joe Manchin or anything, but the regular people you never hear about, if they all start saying this kind of stuff, that's powerful. That's a message. That's a winning message.
It's like if you get the more moderate part of the party, not Joe Manchin, obviously not just the straight up conservatives, but the people you don't hear about. Again, if you get them talking about it, because people like Bernie, people like Warren, they're always on there, but nobody listens because they're always talking about it. If you can get your Alyssa Slockins to fucking say shit like this, it'd be great. It'd be fantastic. And while we're still talking about like crumbling conservative narratives, I don't know if this was before or after Joe Biden's speech, but Lindsey Graham went on MSNBC and had like a quick little interview. I think this is what made conservatives mad at him. And he said that in 2024, if it's Trump versus Biden, that Biden wins based on personality over Trump.
What?
That they're going nuts.
Wait, and what was the context here? How could he ever like admit that?
The context was he said that, okay, well, Trump, people are getting sick of his personality. And I'm like, compared to Joe Biden, though?
Right.
He's the most boring old guy in
Joe
the country.
Biden is a soggy sock.
Exactly.
For all the reasons you think it's soggy.
If you will. Every single one of them. Maybe crusty,
exactly,
if you will.
Exactly.
It's nuts. And he said, but policy-wise, Trump's got him. Trump's policies have held up.
That's nuts. You would think
that's
it's
what I
the
thought.
other way around.
Exactly.
The conservative brain is just wired backwards, dog. Everything about it is just like the opposite of what is in reality.
They want to talk about, they go crazy war on drugs, right? They go crazy on drugs and everything. Being reactionary is the worst drug for your brain.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It will flip you around.
Oh my fucking God, dog. It's crazy. And then towards the end of the speech here, Brandon, I should say.
Brandon.
Because he's in his Dark Brandon phase. He starts listing off his legislative accomplishments. He says, the bipartisan deal, like the infrastructure package, the Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS Act, PAC Act, all that stuff. Starts talking about how good it was. Again, this isn't fascist rhetoric, because a fascist wouldn't talk about what they've accomplished through the, accepted routes for progress. You know what I mean? Like these are accomplishments that happen within the system. Fascists don't want to do that.
A fascist wouldn't be like, holy shit, guys, look at this tax bill.
Right. A fascist wouldn't be like, look at this bipartisan masterpiece we've gotten.
Look at the $300 billion in deficit reduction we did. Wow.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as we mentioned before, there's protesters yelling during the speech, and Joe Biden capitalized on that, and I thought that was good. And he ends by naturally encouraging people to go and vote in November, which is to be expected, and that's good. That's good. And now you can watch the speech for yourself if you want. We're not going to play any of it right now. But for all the conservatives that were crying about it, I thought it was pretty tame.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The honestly, like, the worst part about it, and I don't even like, we're gonna talk about the aesthetics. We'll switch over to talk about the aesthetics. The worst part about it was, I guess, the aesthetics.
The red background?
The red background, because I thought the speech was going to be way more hardcore when that's the only thing that I saw. Because that picture's gas. This picture goes hard. Feel free to screenshot.
Yeah. No, like the picture goes hard, right? And like when I saw that, I thought he was doing a bit too much.
I thought this was like striking in a little bit of the wrong way.
When people first started complaining about it, paired with how the conservatives were talking about it and narrativizing that whatever was going on, I really thought that it was going to be a lot more, I don't know, aggressive.
Same.
Or a lot more just toxic, I guess.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
I thought it was going to be something I'd get up there and say.
Like, I was obviously a bit more agitating than Joe Biden is normally. He said a lot more things that we've been wanting him to say. But none of it was, like, as aggressive as they had, like, framed it to be.
Oh, no. And that's why when you really look at it, when you watch the Ben Shapiro video, please do. It's so fucking funny. It's a purely aesthetic argument. Ben Shapiro literally goes on and he says, okay, let's look at some other images and compare this to, like, fascist representations. And he says, look at this image of General Hux from Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, with the fucking red backgrounds when he's about to launch Starkiller Base.
Look at this scene that's not real.
He said, look at this movie. Look at this movie. And then he said, look at also this other movie, V for Vendetta. And that's what I want to talk about here, because when we talk about fascist imagery, because you know what, frankly, when you look at that image, the red image, one, that image is also clipped wrong. It's clipped out of context. You blow it up a bit and you've got the white in the middle, the red on the sides, and blue on the sides of the red. It's supposed to be an American flag thing. They just kind of fucked it up a little bit, right? It's supposed to be an American flag. It got clipped. But when we look at fascist imagery, because I will say that clip makes it look a little fascist. Because when you think of fascism, you think of the red banners in the background during a speech. You think of the dark knights in the dark uniform.
Right.
Like, he's not necessarily wrong to say that. But what I want to say about it is fascist imagery, what we think of when we think of it, outside of, like, the fucking swastika, right? Because that's very historical, is often ahistorical. What we think of, the Nazis marching down the streets very cinematically, things being shot from the bottom up, all of that was pioneered by this Nazi, Leni Reinhardt. She's the lady that filmed all of the Nazi propaganda films, Triumph of the Will, all of those. That's where fascist iconography comes from. Those big shots with the banners coming down, that's from her movies. Fascist, the images you see of fascism are not historical images. They're from propaganda films, and same with the videos. We don't have videos of Nazis marching down the street like what you think of when you think of Nazis marching down the street.
Yeah.
It's all filmic technique, and that's why in films you see, like, George Lucas copying, like, taking inspiration from that when trying to portray the Empire as this fascist militant force in Star Wars, because it's a movie.
And it's not
because
real,
it's
by the
fake.
way. Yeah.
Just like the original fascist imagery.
Right.
It's a filmic trick, right? And you can't use filmic technique and filmic analysis to analyze real life. If I was driving down to come record the pod on Sundays at 2:00 like we always do, and I saw a car accident, and then after we record the pod and I'm driving back to college and I get in a car accident, I can't go, oh, looks like that car accident was foreshadowing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This speech may look fascist when you look at fascist representations in movies, especially the picture out of context, but the contents of it are not fascist, and Joe Biden himself is nowhere near a fascist.
Right.
He's the most boring old guy on the planet.
Right. That would be like if we were analyzing a Trump speech, and because he had, like, a red flag in the background, we're like, oh, this must be fascist. And there's plenty of speeches where Trump is speaking in front of a red backdrop.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not what makes the speech problematic. And it's the content of the speech and the purpose of it.
And the other thing I want to say about that is a lot of people point to this and point to, like, Hitler with the Nazi banners behind him, right? What's the difference? The Nazi banner, that's a fucking flag. We do that with the American flag all the time.
Right.
And it's not fascist. You're just seeing the colors and you're having a gut reaction because that's what you've trained to think when you look at movies.
And is this not, like, a tendency of a child?
Literally.
To view the colors and shapes and be like,
said,
oh my God,
holy
it's
shit,
the same.
this is like Star Wars.
No, like, is this not the, like, analysis that children would make?
Exactly.
Like, to the extent that they can analyze situations, they would, like, see the same shapes, the same colors, the same imagery, and be like, oh, this reminds me of XYZ.
Yeah.
Like, without doing any further analysis, and then you just conclude to the same.
It's like, holy shit, I just got sick. That must be foreshadowing my death.
Right. That's a little silly. It's a little silly.
Goofy.
And by the way, Brandon, he didn't even use the word fascism in the speech.
Not at all.
He didn't say fascist. He said MAGA Republicans, and he said that those that blindly follow Trump or that want to overturn election results. He said they're a threat to democracy and need to be stopped, but he never actually said fascist.
Yeah.
And this hammers home my point that I made before. It's like, if you think that Joe Biden is talking about fascism here when he says people that want to overturn democratic results, and you think that applies to you, maybe that is cause for some introspection. Maybe you need to look inside and try to think of, why am I associating what he's talking about with my ideology and also the ideology of fascists?
Maybe that's a little sus. Oh no.
Oh shit.
Oh no.
Before we end out our section on Dark Brandon, I want to play a little bit of a game.
Okay.
I'm bringing it back from many episodes ago. I'm going to read some statements on the speech.
Ooh.
And Gage is going to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how putrid it is.
Gotta
Putridity ratings, it's back.
I love it. You know I'm here for it.
So let me pull up my list. Gage has not seen these.
I haven't.
Right?
I have not. I didn't look at it.
I've got 5 statements here, and you're going to figure out how bad they are.
Okay.
First one is from Ben Shapiro, so you might have already seen this one. It says, quote, this is from Ben Shapiro on Twitter, quote, "You're the enemy. That's what this speech was all about. If you do not work with Joe Biden, then he's going to unleash the power of his administration against you because you're a threat to the republic. If you're a conservative who opposes his agenda, he's talking about you."
That's right. That's right. He's talking about you directly when he talked about the conservative opposing his agenda who interrupted him during his speech. I'm going to give that one about like a 6.
That's fair.
It could be a little more. He could have hammered it home like he did in the video. Please go watch it.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro, he's kind of fell off.
He absolutely has.
Like, I used to, I guess I still watch Ben Shapiro's content quite a bit, like a hate watcher.
Ironically.
I mean, I give him a view every now and then. But his content really has fallen off. He's not as, like, I don't know, because he likes to frame himself as this intellectual giant for conservatives. But I feel like they don't, I don't know, maybe it's just how conservatives have changed, but they don't care about that anymore.
No.
They don't care about making arguments that are compelling. They're just like the children, matching the shapes and the colors to other images they've seen and then crying about it and reacting to it.
It's like he should be a Lincoln Project guy.
Right.
Somehow he made it through with his grift because he even said, he's like, I hated the Trump January 6th speech, but it was nothing like this, when in fact it was worse.
Yeah, Joe Biden didn't incite insurrection. I also love this quote specifically because it's like, Joe Biden didn't say anything about agreeing with his agenda. In fact, he made it a point to say that if you disagree with me, you have a right to do that, but we need to come together and face the threat to our democracy and the threat to foundational American principles.
Yeah, he said, I'm the president of all of you, not just the president of the Democrats. I want to work for all of you.
Yeah. Moving on to our next one from Don Jr.
No.
He says, quote, "Imagine what the media would do if Trump gave a speech about millions of Democrat voters. It really makes you realize how partisan and broken they are when watching them desperately run cover for the arguably the most divisive speech in American history."
He does that every single rally.
That's what I'm saying.
At every single rally. The Democrats are lock her up, lock Hillary up. Trump stops just short of saying that it's the Jews.
Yeah, no, he literally called Democrats fascists one time.
Yeah.
Or maybe multiple times, but pretty early on in his presidency, he was calling Democrats the fascists.
It's nuts. It's fucking nuts. His rhetoric literally stops just short from being absolutely vile. And then you have other people in the party, the core like MAGA Republicans that you think of when you think of Trump and the people under him. Marjorie Taylor Greene literally got on there and said Jewish space lasers, and she's taken seriously.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
They sent her to a Holocaust memorial museum as punishment because she's a child, and she had to like do a book report.
Time out.
She had to do a book report. Like these people are ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What would you rate that?
I'm gonna give that's Don Jr. It's gonna get a 9.
Okay. That's you may have to rearrange your rankings after we read these next few.
Oh no.
Next one's from Representative Louis Gohmert from Texas.
I don't even know who he is, so that's how you know.
He said things fascists actually do. It's a list. He said censor/jail opposition, raid opposition's home, indoctrinate the youth, spy on opponents, illegally threaten SCOTUS, coerce experimental vax, political violence, in parentheses, Antifa, BLM, Jane's Revenge.
Jane's Revenge?
Apparently, I think this like an abortion's extremist quote-unquote group.
Okay.
Weaponize the justice system and dehumanize half the country. Those are things fascists do.
That's what fascists do.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Quite the list.
I love the no names getting in on this too.
Yeah.
Like just the random Texas guy just really goes to show the people in Texas just how far they're willing to go. I'm gonna have to knock Ben Shapiro down to a 5.
Okay.
I'll knock Don down. I'll admit that was a gut reaction. I'll knock Don down to like a 7, and I'll give him the true 8.5.
Okay.
True scale. This is a true scale.
Now we have a tweet from Nick Adams, someone we follow on Twitter who's fucking insane.
Oh yeah.
He said, quote, I don't think Hitler ever said anything about the Jews that was as straightforwardly evil and as Biden said about me as a Trump supporter last night. Lie after lie after lie. Encouragement to make other people fear me. And we know what fear does to groups. Disgusting.
Nah. This
is a certified hood classic.
That's off the scales. That is nuts. I don't think Hitler said anything as evil about the Jew.
How can you have that take?
Nah. You know why he didn't think Hitler said anything as evil about the Jews?
Because he agrees.
He agrees. That's crazy.
I love this take because they make it seem as though being a Trump supporter or being a Republican is the same as being ethnically Jewish.
It's just like a fucking Gina Carano, Cara Dune getting fired from Disney for saying, guys, look at how conservatives are being treated. It's just like the Jews.
Yeah, no, like they think being Jewish and being Republican are like the same in kind.
Yeah.
But like being ethnically, like that's an immutable characteristic. You know what I mean? You choose to be a Republican.
Exactly.
You don't have to hold these beliefs.
Nazis took people and said, oh, this feature that you have looks Jewish. Therefore, you are Jewish. You will be treated like a Jewish person. It's not how it works for conservatism.
No.
It's
like you don't have to be anti-democracy. That's a conscious choice you are making. And Joe Biden's not saying, like, we need to put you in a camp. Like, he's just saying, like, yeah, you need to be stopped. You need to not have political power.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking insane. What would you rate that?
That's off the charts right there. That's got to win.
That's a broke my scale.
That's a broke my scale.
We got one more, though. From Vivian Frey on Twitter. They say, listen to the POTUS speech again and replace the term MAGA Republican with Jew, Muslim, Black, Japanese, or any other ethnic, racial, or religious group, and you'll truly appreciate the tenor and terror of what you just heard.
That's crazy. That's
crazy.
I don't even know where the logic is. 10 out of 10 right there. That's a 10 out of 10. It's just replace this word with something that's completely different.
Yeah,
and you have a different meaning. Wow.
Change the meaning of his speech and you mean something different.
Guys, imagine if he said this about a completely different group of people that do different things with a different context.
Yeah.
God damn.
Pretty crazy. That's a 10 out of 10?
That's a 10 right there.
All right, that concludes our Putridity ratings. I think we got a pretty good representation of how conservatives were reacting to the speech. I think that was pretty indicative of what they believe as a whole.
Conservatives, I like how they don't realize that they're literally tweeting that shit. This basically, those last two are Nazi apologia.
Yeah.
Basically, right? It's functionally Nazi apologia. And they wonder why sometimes they get banned off Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't get banned for that. Those tweets are up and running right now and giving them clout.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had an edited video of it was like Hitler's face superimposed on Joe Biden's, and he was like speaking German. I think it was like a Hitler speech, and it was just like the audio of a Nazi speech. And it's still up. You could go find it. Like, she posted that, and it's like, yeah, if you completely change everything he was saying, then it's different.
Yeah,
like this. If you make him say the opposite of what he was saying, then he agrees with you.
It's they don't get it though, because everything Trump said was right.
Yeah,
they believe everything Trump said had to be true.
Anyway, more broadly though, ending our section on Dark Brandon for right now. Calling out fascist is not itself fascist, of course.
Yes.
It's something you have to do if you want to defend against fascism. Again, I mentioned the paradox of tolerance before. If you want to have a tolerant society, one that's inclusive of everybody's views, inclusive of everyone's identity, you can't tolerate intolerance.
No, absolutely
you can't tolerate intolerance. And there's a paradox that lies within that you have to contend with if you want a free society. In the same way, if you want a democracy, you can't have people in positions of power that are anti-democracy.
Yeah.
It will not work. It doesn't matter how strong your political institutions are, how long they've been around, or how good you think your country is as a whole, how powerful you think it is. If it's left undefended, it will fall. I mean, it's just like if you have a castle that is not defended, if there's nobody there defending it, eventually you can get inside.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to be able to stop you. It's the same thing here. And not only is it wrong to suggest that like things will just be fine if people who are anti-democracy, the GOP, take power, it's historically inaccurate.
Yeah.
Because democracies that destabilized allowed themselves to be destabilized by people who wish to undermine them. You can think of Nazi Germany or, fascist Italy, et cetera, et cetera.
Or you can think of America.
Or you can think of
all
America.
These immigrants coming through.
Or you can think of America literally right now. If you do not defend it, it is going to fall.
Yeah.
Democracy is something to be protected. It's not something that can just run on its own. And you got to call that out. And that doesn't make you fascist for calling it out. It makes you, I don't know, a hero of democracy.
Exactly.
Joe Biden's a hero.
Just
now.
like our patrons.
Exactly.
Just like our patrons. Next, we'll buffer this in the Palin loss with a little segment I'm gonna call Unretirement.
Oh, nice.
So, Wisconsin conservative senator Ron Johnson. I don't know if you've heard of him. Seems like a pretty cool guy based on this.
Was he the one we talked about like maybe months ago about? He was the one that wanted to raise taxes on middle class Americans. That he released the 11-point plan.
No, that was Rick Scott.
Fuck,
that was Rick Scott. You know, all these. It's such a basic white name.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I lose track of the fucking insane people.
They
in the Republican
really
Party.
just fade into obscurity because there's so many of them. But yeah, Senator Ron Johnson out of Wisconsin. Shout out the Wisconsin folk. Gotta love me some cheese. He proposed what he called an innovative idea last weekend during a telephone town hall. The problem this idea is aimed at is the labor shortage. Now, Jeremy, what do you think he wants to do to solve the labor shortage?
Oh, he definitely wants a measured response where he raises wages and benefits and things like paid maternity leave to incentivize workers to get back in the workplace in a cooperative way that is non-coercive.
Well, close. However, I would say it's more akin to a story we covered, I want to say last year, remember when the labor shortage was also going on during COVID, how they said they wanted to lower the age to which you needed to work?
Oh, yeah, so like 14-year-olds can work?
Yeah, it's akin to that, except on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Ooh, okay.
He said, quote, he wanted to coax retirees out of retirement by getting rid of the payroll tax. However, that's not the part that I think it's funny. It's the context that I think is really funny here because this guy himself is obviously a senior. He's a senator. It's kind of a precondition to be a senator that you're a senior citizen right now. You know what I mean?
If you're in the Senate, you are most likely a fucking elderly, decrepit, dying bag of bones. Yeah.
Bro's decaying on stage every time he gets. That's why he's doing the telephone town hall. You know what I'm saying? He can't get up. But anyway, it's that. He himself is a senior citizen. And every single year, he proposes that we just cut Social Security and Medicare. This dude just got on his telephone town hall where you're supposed to, engage with your constituents in a way, like listen to them, and see what they actually want.
Think about who's on a telephone town hall.
Oh, yeah.
It's old people. Who's got the time to be on a telephone town hall?
I get the calls all the time from my representative, and bro's like, "Oh, come to this town hall at 6." No,
I'm not doing it.
I will never.
I got better things to do.
Unless you personally invited head in the office.
Oh yeah, unless we get a special speaking slot for 30 minutes. I'm not going to be there.
Right.
But people that do go are old.
Oh yeah, they're old.
Yeah.
They're pulling up the fucking. They're doing the like with the circular phones. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know what they're called because they're so
rotary
old.
phones. Yeah,
exactly. The rotary phones.
The people that are attending a Ron Johnson telephone town hall are the people who benefit from the programs he wants to cut.
No, literally,
like they're cut.
It amazes me that he's talking directly to these people that are probably about his age. Yeah. And he's saying, "Yeah, you guys, I think you should work until you die."
Yeah. Fuck.
Love it.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the near future, the GOP is just openly advocating for like forcing people to go back to work at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Like not only is you not working a violation of the Protestant work ethic, but it also will put you in jail and will kill you if you don't go to work.
Exactly.
Like I wouldn't be like if that was a mainstream Republican talking point at some point, I would not be surprised.
Like nobody wants to work anymore. Make them.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So we're going to make them.
Force them. You're getting paid. It's not slavery. Like we're just Unretirement. That's nuts. We want you to come out of retirement. You've been working your entire life since World War II. You've been in the workforce, but and you've paid your dues to society. You've put into the system so much, and now you're just getting a little bit out of it. Nah, get back to work.
It's just like what do you want from this, doc? Like you're a senior citizen. You can go get Social Security when you lose eventually. Like you can get Social Security. You can get on Medicaid.
Dog, maybe you need to retire.
No, for real.
Like, just fuck, man. You're ruining it for everybody else.
God, like, who's he trying to appease with this? Young conservatives? Is he trying to go meet with, like, I don't know, Wisconsin colleges, Turning Point USA chapter?
Right, yeah.
And get in with all the cool kids there? What are you doing?
And like even like all the people that think that this policy is like the young people, the Turning Point people that'd be like, yeah, let's get more people back to work. Like you're cucking yourself.
And it's like
you're limiting what you get to have later on in life. Why would you want that?
It's just crazy to me that like the first thing that my AP like what was it, AP Politics and US Government or AP US Gov
something like that,
teacher said to me in high school was like, you never go for Social Security. Like, you never go for Social Security and Medicare. They are wildly popular policies.
Exactly, you can't.
And it's weird to see how rampant, like, conservatives have been ramping up going for Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason that from what I mentioned earlier, I think they're overextending because their own voters don't like this. Like, because Republicans right now, conservatives right now, they have to keep upping the ante, right? We've talked about this social phenomenon before. They have to keep raising the stakes because they have to justify them being victims of some, false oppression because their victimhood doesn't actually exist. So they have to keep going after more and more things. But at some point, you hit structures or institutions or benefits that help the people that support you. Like with abortion specifically, there are women within the Republican Party that support abortion, and when you try to take that away, they're gonna be like, "Well, hold on, wait a minute. Like I support, all the racism.
This is gonna hurt me and my daughters.
I support all the racism you're doing, but like this, this is settled."
Hold on now, I don't like black people. However,
right, like at some point. As individualistic as this society is, there will be some old person that typically votes for Republicans that's like, wait, you want to take, like, I benefit from this.
Yeah, like
why would you take this away?
How I actively, live. Like, I need this Social Security check to be able to get groceries every month. What are you doing?
Yeah. And of course, there's a more malicious intent belying everything that Ron Johnson said because it's, you want to force people back into the workplace rather than reorganize the economy such that the workers are incentivized to work in a cooperative fashion where they're getting paid more, they have more benefits, and, the pie is split a little bit more evenly between them and the capitalists.
Maybe if they realize it's a pay shortage and not a labor shortage, then things would get moving.
Yeah. Maybe you could get more people working the jobs that nobody wants to work if you paid them a little bit more.
Maybe if,
but of course they don't want to do that.
Maybe if entry-level positions were actually entry-level positions and people could get into them, then maybe there wouldn't be as much of a labor shortage going on.
You have college debt? How about you just fucking eat it? How about you just fucking eat it? But also you need a college degree in order to work. But if you don't work, I'm going to call you lazy.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that you graduated college, like you got your bachelor's, but while you were getting your bachelor's, you also didn't get 2 to 3 years of industry experience that you could get this entry-level job?
Right. Well, it's like they will shame you if you have an entry-level job for a long time, like you're working at like
because
a Starbucks or something.
You deserve those.
Right,
you deserve those shitty wages.
You're not working hard enough. But if you go to college and you have to take on debt because you're not an already wealthy person like the vast majority of people in this country, then you're also bad for taking on debt and struggling to pay it back. But you also need that college education in order to get a higher level. Like you're just damned no matter what. No matter what. They hate you. The contempt for the working class by the Republican Party is fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, and it's so wild to see just absolutely how extreme they've gotten with policy. Like for a long time, it was thought to be a very extreme thing to come after Social Security and Medicare because a huge portion of the voting population is the old people. Like young people, unfortunately, don't turn out like old people do.
Right.
So you don't want to cut the things that directly hurt your base.
Right.
It's nuts. And speaking of extremism, now the way you combat extremism at the ballot box is by moving past first past the post and going into a ranked choice system, right?
Yeah.
And now they're seeing that they're getting packed up with ranked choice voting with this Sarah Palin loss.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Moving on to Sarah Palin taking a fucking L.
Boom.
That's right, people. Alaska, at least in the House, just flipped blue for the first time in a long time.
Like ever, probably.
Well, I think a Democrat's won before. Maybe back.
I know this is the first.
Maybe back when the Democrats were the bad guys.
This is the first Native Alaskan to win.
Yes.
Nuts.
So as we just mentioned, Mary Peltola. Yeah, that's how you say that. Mary Peltola. She's the first Native American to win the Alaska seat for the U.S. House of Representatives. They only have one seat, which is why we're saying one, because the state is so small in population that they don't have that.
It's so incredibly rural.
Yeah, so incredibly rural that they only have one seat in the House of Representatives. But she, a Democrat, just beat Sarah Palin and Nick Begich, who were two Republicans that were running. Now, previously, and I'll get into what ranked choice voting is in just a second, but previously, Alaska voters approved a ballot measure to implement ranked choice on a statewide level.
Sadly, Santa Claus didn't win, if you remember that cold open from a while ago.
That was an L. But they have a ranked choice voting system now, and Mary Peltola just won out of that ranked choice voting system, and they had an election just now in I think it did it end in August or September, whatever.
I think it ended like last week.
Yeah, so it ended recently. The reason they had an election was because Don Young, the previous person who sat in that seat, a Republican, died earlier this year, so they had to have a special election. The three people that just ran, Nick Begich, Sarah Palin, and Mary Peltola, will again face in November.
Yep.
So there's no guarantee that Peltola will win again. This was a special election in a midterm year, so turnout might have been a bit fucky.
Yeah.
Who knows if Peltola will get the same numbers as she did previously, but a Democrat won, and it is still worth talking about nonetheless.
It is.
So again, ranked choice voting system in Alaska now. If you don't know, ranked choice voting is a more democratic system of voting where you literally get to rank each candidate.
Unequivocally more democratic.
Yes.
Like, there's not a way you could spin it. Sorry, Tom Cotton. There's not a way you could spin it to say that this is less democratic than first past the post.
Yeah. So basically, what would happen is, let's explain it in the context of what happens now.
Okay.
So right now, in most states throughout the country, you will go, whether it be a primary or a general election, and you will just pick one candidate for each category that you're voting in, senator, House representatives, et cetera, et cetera. You pick one, and that's it. Doesn't matter how many third-party candidates there are. Doesn't matter how many Democrats or Republicans are running. That's it. You pick one, and that's the extent of your voting.
Yes.
It's the extent of your say, which typically incentivizes people to vote against the person they don't want to win.
Yeah.
Like that's really how our system works, is you vote defensively.
Voted for Joe Biden.
Right. You vote for damage reduction. Rather than voting for a third party candidate or for someone that you actually support, you got to vote against the one you think will win if you think that person is bad.
And it also it incentivizes party politics. If you're a Lincoln Project Republican, you are still going to vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden because you are a conservative at heart.
Exactly. But ranked choice voting is a system, again, where you literally rank each candidate. So if however many candidates there are, you'll put your favorite one in number one, your second favorite number two, and so on and so forth. So in this race, there were three people, two Republicans, one Democrat. So if you wanted say you wanted Mike Begich to win, right?
Yep.
Or was that his name? Nick? Mike?
Something. Doesn't matter.
Nick.
Bro took
Nick
an L.
Begich. Yeah, literally doesn't. He's a nobody now. So if no candidate receives 50% immediately, which would be a majority and you just win outright, if no candidate receives 50%, then the top two candidates remain and the rest go away. Right?
Yep.
And the people who had their candidate go away, their number one choice, their number two choice then gets their vote.
Yep.
So what happened specifically in this Alaska election is that Mary Peltola came out with, let me see where I have the numbers here.
51.5% to
Well, that was the final number.
Yes.
She came out with 40% of the vote in the beginning. Palin had 31% of the vote, and Begich had 28% of the vote. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody reached 50%, but Peltola was in first. She received the most number one ranked votes. And then the ballots were reorganized because Begich got the lowest votes. He was eliminated. Everyone who voted for Begich as number one then had their number two votes kick into place.
Yep.
And it just so happened that Peltola got more of those, and Peltola ended up winning by like 2%, right?
Yeah.
Super tiny margin.
51.5 to 48.5.
Right. But once those ballots were reorganized, then Peltola took the W. Again, just a more democratic system of voting. And by the way, it removes the need for a runoff election because it basically consolidates everything into one system.
That saves money. Runoffs are so fucking expensive.
Yeah. And just as I mentioned specifically, Nick Begich came in third. So again, anyone that voted for him is number one. Their number two votes kicked in. Peltola took the W. That's all it was.
Great.
That's literally all it is. Ranked choice voting, by design, takes power away from polarizing candidates. Because polarizing candidates, they typically win by splitting the voter base amongst the ones that are a bit more moderate, right?
Like Trump.
Right.
That's why Trump won. Ben Shapiro, fucking Ted Cruz, a bunch of other conservatives vehemently hated Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But once he won that party nomination, they had to fundamentally reorganize in order to stay within the party, to keep their party in power, to keep themselves in power.
Exactly.
Ranked choice voting eliminates that.
Yeah.
And it makes more people happy.
And like it structurally eliminates that because if you are a more polarizing candidate, you can't depend on winning, say, a large chunk of the votes but not a majority, because you have to now start thinking about if you get ranked second, third, fourth, fifth, etc.
Yeah.
Because if you get ranked lower, you're getting less of the votes. But Trump could rely on people, just like a solid 25% voting for him, and then the vote being split amongst everybody else, and he got the dub. That wouldn't have happened if there was a ranked choice voting system. It takes power away from polarizing candidates, not only on the right, but it also hurts people further on the left. It trends towards centrist candidates, people more in the middle, which, you can say if that's good or bad. because a similar thing happened in New York with Eric Adams winning. He won through a ranked choice voting system. It takes power away from the polarizing candidates and incentivizes a more positive campaign, which I think is generally good for democracy.
I think it's generally good, and it's like you say, the alarm bells in your head may have gone off when you hear it takes away even the far left candidates. I'm not worried about that.
Right.
Because I still wholeheartedly believe in the policies that I believe in and the progressive politics that I believe in. Because honestly, I don't think that progressivism is polarizing.
Yeah.
I don't think the things we get on here and talk about are really polarizing. And we've seen that with people we've talked, conservatives that we've talked about in our lives, conservatives I talked to in my life. We believe somewhat of the same things, but party politics has duped them.
Yeah.
And ranked choice voting helps take the emphasis off of party politics. It enables a strong not even a strong third party. It just enables third parties to run and actually run a meaningful campaign and have a chance.
Right, because if you say there's a Democrat running, there's a Republican running, and then some third party candidate, right?
Yeah.
Say you really like the third party candidate. In a typical voting system that we have right now in most states, you may feel inclined to vote for the Democrat because you don't want the Republican to win.
Yeah.
Right? There's a common mantra that if I vote for third party, I'm basically throwing my vote away, giving it to the person I don't want to win because I'm not voting against them. But if you have a ranked choice system, then you can actually vote for that third party candidate in number 1, put the Democrat in number 2, and then be safe knowing that if the third party candidate, only receives like 10% of the vote, 5% of the vote, that you still didn't vote for the Republican.
Imagine the numbers that Bernie would have got if in 2016 and 2020 if the DNC couldn't say, but Bernie's not electable.
Exactly.
If you could just say, well, I think he is, so I'm going to put him at number 1.
Right.
And if the chances just so happen that other people didn't and he doesn't make it, he gets eliminated, whatever, we have Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Right.
More people are happy.
All ranked choice does is open up more options for voters.
Exactly.
That is it. It doesn't do anything funky with the numbers. It doesn't steal elections from anybody. In fact, it ensures that no one who earns less than 50% can win because there are some states that have no runoff laws.
Oh, yeah.
Where if you just get more than anybody else, you immediately win, which means you can win without a majority of voters voting for you. Yeah. This is a more democratic system because it forces you to have to appeal to as many people as possible.
And it's still like saying that it trends towards center sounds a little scary, but it trending towards center I don't think is necessarily a product of the voting system in of itself. I think that's more to do with rhetoric and how our party politics are organized broadly in the culture. We need to, people like us, the podcasters, the real soldiers of democracy out here on the ground are the ones that need to be responsible for helping change and popularize leftist rhetoric so we can get third parties in these states with ranked choice voting to have a chance.
Right. And like even if it's eventually established nationwide, which I think we're far away from doing, but if it is and it does trend towards moderate candidates, I would rather have this system than the current one we have because it's more democracy.
Absolutely.
It is better. I am not concerned with me being right or me taking dubs. I'm concerned with democracy functioning.
And I would also try, I'd try a little bit harder in my rhetoric if it meant that we had a moderate political climate rather than a political climate that is actively taking rights away from women, actively just being awful on crime and further marginalizing more marginalized community than a political climate that is trying to actively genocide people in the LGBTQ community. I would much rather have a moderate climate than what we have right now.
Absolutely.
If it meant that I had to try a little bit harder to get more progressive policies, and that's fine.
But it also makes it possible. You know what I mean? Because in our current climate, it's very unlikely that we'll get someone that's like super progressive through because of how well the DNC works and because of how our elections are just immediately winner take all. Yeah. Anyone that gets even less than the majority of votes gets to win. But in a ranked choice system, we at least have a chance, and the stakes are a lot lower.
Exactly. Like it takes away so much of what Democrats attack us for. It takes away. I bring her up all the time, but I always forget her name. I'm sure you'll know who I'm talking about. 2020 election. She said we never need to say the word socialism again because that's why we're losing.
Oh, what was her name? I know what you're talking about, though. I don't remember her name, but I know what you're talking about.
I want to say Alyssa Slotkin, but I know it's not Alyssa Slotkin.
It was somebody that lost that blamed it all on progressives.
Exactly. She blamed her loss on progressives. They can never say that if there was a ranked choice system going.
Right.
It would be fantastic. We'd see a huge boost. It'd be great.
Yeah, because if you're losing to people that are further left, or you lose to somebody on the right, be better. That's it. Like you can't blame it on anyone but yourself because people are ranking you.
Yeah,
people are not just voting against someone and for you; they are ranking you in accordance to how much they like you.
This is tier list voting, baby. Tiermaker.com. Put it on the ballot.
And by the way, it is like exactly like a caucus. If any of you know what a caucus is, it's always in person. It's this big room that you'll get into, and you walk to different areas of the room based on who you want to vote for. And once a candidate's only viable if they earn a certain percentage of the votes of the people there, right? And if your candidate doesn't receive a certain amount of votes, then you have to go find somebody else to vote for. That's basically just ranked choice voting. But it's in paper form, and it's a lot easier to tabulate and takes a lot less time. Yeah. We've been doing caucuses for a long, long time.
Shout out Iowa caucus.
Exactly. And this is just a better form of voting. But all of that established, all of that to say that ranked choice voting is only a good thing, only a progression of where we are now, Republicans are still calling it rigged.
Oh, yeah. Tom Cotton got on Twitter. That's why I brought him up earlier.
I got a quote right here.
You got the quote?
I got the quote. Tom Cotton said 60% of Alaska voters voted for a Republican, but thanks to a convoluted process and ballot exhaustion, which disenfranchises voters, a Democrat won.
Ballot exhaustion? What the fuck does that
mean? I don't know. I think it's just another talking point, another zinger.
Yeah, another zinger that they just made up. That's crazy. It's yeah, sure, 60% because they got the raw vote, but most people wanted the conservative the least.
Yeah.
They wanted it the least. You can't judge ranked choice voting based on percentages like that. That's not how the system works. And he's relying on ignorance. Conservatives thrive on ignorance and faulty intuition to get all of their fucking wins and messaging across.
Also, if you didn't have a ranked choice system there, Mary Peltola still wins.
Facts.
The votes for Palin weren't there.
No.
Peltola still had the plurality of votes before the second organization of ballots came through. She still would have won regardless. Sarah Palin was just a bad candidate that people didn't like, and it just so happened that Republicans who voted for Nick Begich, the other Republican, ended up voting for Peltola in second place, and Palin just didn't win.
Did not like Palin.
Yes.
There's all the narrative. Conservatives love to take the responsibility away from themselves, never take accountability. Never take accountability for any of their losses.
I also love this narrative that they're pushing now, which I guess they've been pushing, that any voting system where Democrats can win is rigged. Mail-in ballots, rigged.
Yeah. Oh, rigged. Really?
Early voting must be rigged.
Voting? Rigged.
Counting the votes?
Counting the votes. Rigged.
Can't do that.
Stop not counting the votes? Rigged.
And I think this betrays a sort of insecurity in the Republican Party that they have towards their electoral chances. They think that making voting easier, making it more accessible, making it better means that Republicans lose.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you should take a moment and question why this is their belief. Because if we live in a democracy, where the people rule and they elect people to then represent them in Congress, then wouldn't your ideology be, we need to be better. We need to appeal to more people.
Absolutely.
We need to earn more votes. But they think making voting more accessible and giving voters more choices when it comes to their voting and voting methods, that means they will lose.
Not only do you see it with things like ranked choice voting like this and voter ID laws, making Election Day a national holiday, things like that are just strictly explicit things that would make voting easier.
Right.
You see it with things like gerrymandering as well. I believe Tom Cotton was also the one. He made another tweet saying that if we let ranked choice voting and independent third-party redistrictors into states, then Republicans will never win another election again. That's a self-report. You're just telling on yourself. Why would independent redistrictors make you never win an election again? Why would a more democratic system make you never win an election again? Come on now.
Yeah, no, if you don't know, independent redistricting commissions, every 10 years, state legislatures have to redraw their district lines, right? Yeah. We've talked about this before.
We'll be talking about this a lot in November for Moore v. Harper.
Yeah, exactly. And states have to redraw their district lines, and that is typically done by the state legislatures. And it's problematic because whatever party is in control of the state legislature basically gets to decide what the state is going to look like, who gets represented, who falls into which district. It's a problem because that can become partisan. It can disenfranchise voters, typically voters of color, by splitting them up.
Famously, Austin, Texas, split into 6 districts. Austin is not only the most liberal city in Texas, but it is also the most diverse. So it has the most black people in Texas. Exactly. It is split into 6, I believe, red districts.
Yeah.
Wild. You are just actively making it so that these people's voices don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And independent redistricting commissions come in because they are led by citizens who are typically balanced in a partisan way, right? There's a certain amount of Democrats, there's an equal number of Republicans, there's a certain amount of independents, and citizens redraw the district lines. And state legislatures and the governor don't get a say.
Yeah.
So it's the citizens coming up with how their state is going to be carved out. It's a more removed process that opens up more fairness within our political system.
Direct democracy.
Exactly. The only reason you would think this is bad is if you want the opportunity to rig the election for yourself. There's no reason to oppose this. There's no reason to oppose making our system more accessible or making it more fair, unless you think making it more accessible and more fair means you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And my response to that would be better.
Get packed up, take that L, put on a t-shirt.
Put more popular policies on your platform. Get more voters.
Work to actually appeal to people.
Change more people's minds. Is that not how our democracy is supposed to function?
Yeah.
Convince more people that your side is the correct one, unless they have a sort of insecurity that they can't do that, and they have to rely on a minority of Americans electing them to stay in power. Republicans kind of suck. Kind of bad.
Suck. Kind of taking L's all around.
Anyway, absolute dub for Mary Peltola.
That's facts.
Glad she's in
the other thing I did want to say, though, if the DNC does not see this and start running ads about ranked choice voting, they need to be in there. They need to be just absolutely pushing, what is ranked choice voting? How does ranked choice voting work? This is what's going on.
Yeah.
To not only combat misinformation, like we're already seeing with Tom Cotton and other conservatives, but just to push for ranked choice voting across the country. They do not know what the fuck they're doing.
They better implement it in the primaries as well. The DNC can just do that.
Oh my God.
The party,
but like, they won't.
Well, they won't, but like the party can control how the primaries function. Like that's not a state thing.
It's private.
Right.
The DNC is a private entity.
Like the party gets to choose if the primary even happens at all. But the primary is controlled by the DNC or the RNC if it's a Republican primary. You can implement whatever kind of voting system you want. They're even considering right now changing the order in which states vote. So it might not be Iowa first anymore.
Oh, really?
Which is like, say what you will. I don't really care.
Really
Doesn't matter. But if they don't implement ranked choice voting, then like I don't know what they're doing.
Oh, no.
I mean, it is run by a bunch of old fucking white people.
They
but
absolutely need to get in there, just be running ads on this. This is the type of political shit you need to be capitalizing on immediately. You need to take this momentum and run with it, not only so that she can keep her seat in November when she runs against these same people again, but so that other people can win their seats and we can maybe keep the Senate and keep the House. Like what would be good for the people that live in the country.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think the DNC will do it because ranked choice voting undermines the power that parties have.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, because again, if you are voting in the typical system that exists in America right now, you are voting against Republicans. And Democrats can rely on being awful, but just a little bit better than Republicans to get by because damage control. They can rely on that. But if you have a ranked choice system, then suddenly people can be like, all right, Democrats are barely better. Fuck it, I'm voting for a third party candidate. I'm voting for an independent over the Democrat.
If you have a ranked choice system, then suddenly the DCCC making you raise $250,000 from your contacts in your phone is a little less viable of a strategy to help get people in.
Yeah. But I guess we'll see what happens with that. Absolute dub. Fuck Sarah Palin. Get stomped.
Fuck Sarah Palin. Took an L in 2008. Took an L now.
Did you see that she was absolutely melting down?
Really?
And they had like a little, I don't know if it was like an interview or what it was, but she was at some fucking building with supporters, and she was like, "Really? Alaskan voters voting for Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden? They're winning based on second and third place votes?" It's like, nah, you were the third place vote, brother. Like, Mary Peltola won on first and second place votes. You were in third. You didn't get any of the votes.
I know historically she does not take losses well. After 2008, she resigned as governor just for no reason. To be fair, I'm pretty sure she was very much mistreated by the GOP being a woman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure the misogyny played into it, but she did not take losses.
It's a little bit of a self-inflicted wound, though.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a Republican. You know what I mean?
You could be a good person.
Yeah. You in fact,
you can actively make the choice to be a better person every day.
And it's like, why would you not be mad at the Republican Party for running two candidates in your race?
No, for real.
Like, if you really thought that you had the ability to beat her one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what she thinks, is that the system was rigged against her, that's why she lost. Why would you not be mad at the Republicans and be like, they should have got this other dude, Nick Begich, to drop out?
Shouldn't you be mad at bro for playing spoiler?
Right.
That's crazy.
But that's the thing, you can't play spoiler with ranked choice.
That's the crazy. I was going to say, he didn't even play spoiler. If anything, she maybe played spoiler.
Right. You can't play spoiler with ranked choice voting because people literally rank you. Like, spoiler doesn't work. Spoiler only works if it's winner take all, one or the other. Like, so stupid. So stupid. Anyway. Moving on here in the show, I want to talk about an issue that actually impacts people.
For real. More serious news.
Yeah, not a Dark Brandon speech or a Sarah Palin, me thinking that Tina Fey and Sarah Palin are the same person.
I was going to say, your Sarah Palin impression, I was thinking all I'm hearing is Tina Fey right now.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of.
Yeah. We're talking about state abortion bans because there's some actual news that we should actually cover this episode. Over the last several months, several abortion bans have gone into effect, and there's 12 states that now have total abortion bans.
God damn.
And I'm going to list them. So we got Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Idaho, Montana, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and South Dakota. All of those states have total abortion bans in place, whether it be self-imposed by the state legislature or laws that just kicked back into place after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Yeah. Those are the states. Not great. And then in Ohio and Georgia, they have 6 weeks bans, so pretty awful. Abortion's banned after 6 weeks. In Florida, there's an abortion ban after 15 weeks. Utah's at 18, North Carolina at 20 weeks, and then a bunch of other states at 22. And there's plenty of states, maybe not plenty, but there's a handful of states that have no abortion bans at all. Right? Yes. Nothing on viability, nothing on 22 weeks, etc. So abortion is still legal in those states. The suspects, Washington, Oregon, California, etc.
Michigan, currently a little bit of drama. The ballot, the ballot initiative to get abortion rights on the ballot this year reached 750,000 signatures. Right? You only need 450,000 to get on the ballot.
300,000 above. Yeah.
Exactly, 300,000 above. That's wild. Seems like people want that on the ballot, huh? Seems like that's direct democracy. Ballot measures, the most direct democracy you can have in this system.
Exactly.
Good thing, I would say. Not the Michigan Board of Canvassers. They do not think it's a good thing. They blocked the measure from going through.
Right.
So now it's got to go to the state Supreme Court.
The Board of Canvassers is supposed to be a nonpartisan organization that approves what goes on the ballot. So it happens, it goes through a couple of mediums, a little bit more democracy. You know what I'm saying? And it's always consisted of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans that are supposed to balance each other. But if you don't have, I think it's 3 out of the 4 vote for something to be on the ballot, it gets deadlocked, right?
Yeah.
If it's 2 versus 2. Now it's going to the state Supreme Court, which
because it was deadlocked,
right? It's probably going to pass the Supreme Court and get onto the ballot because it did everything the right way.
Has to. There's no way.
But a commission or a committee that's never supposed to hold anything up is holding this up. So a little bit partisan.
Didn't the Board of Canvassers also do some fuck shit during the election? Like, weren't they also holding up the Wayne County results?
They tried to decertify some stuff, yeah. Right. They're supposed to be a nonpartisan group that just is procedural, right? Yeah. That doesn't take an ideological stance, but makes sure everything is going in accordance to a procedure.
It's like the parliamentarian.
Right, and everything is legal, but no. Yeah, because I don't think they're an elected body.
Oh, really?
I think they're appointed.
Straight up the parliamentarian.
Right, exactly. So it's like that's some bullshit.
That's some bullshit. That's some huge bullshit right there.
But if you live in one of those 12 states or one of the states I listed that has a ban in place right now, be vigilant. Make sure you know what your state election law is, or your state laws are. Check out if you have a ballot measure coming up because many states do. Shout out Kansas who already passed theirs. Absolute W. I know several states have referendums on abortion coming up that I would hope are going to pass, even in the reddest states. So check that out. Again, some of these laws just exist because they existed before Dobbs. I think Wisconsin is one of those that had a law from decades ago that restricted abortion rights, and it just snapped back into place. And I think the Democratic governor of Wisconsin is trying to challenge it, but a judge let it go through. But while it's being challenged, so it's in place right now.
I was going to say, with a senator like Ron Johnson, I don't know if I'd have my hopes up.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I don't know if I'd have my hopes up. But, speaking of a state that's on this list right now, Mississippi.
Oh.
Jackson, Mississippi, the biggest city in the state, right? Mississippi, a deep red state, if you couldn't already tell based on the abortion ban. Jackson's having a lot of issues right now, to say the least. Right now, they have the whole entire city, total water shut off.
What?
Yeah.
How?
The water treatment plant was contaminated in a flood.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like you're not paying your water bill.
No, there was a historic rainfall in Jackson, which flooded the water treatment site.
Okay.
So this whole entire city.
Wow, climate change must not be real. Look at all that water.
This whole entire city right now is actively without water. The National Guard was dispersed to send out cases of water to citizens. However, I think you all know how that went. Within 90 minutes, all of the water was gone.
Oh my God, yeah.
One case per family. Like 132 case. You can't shower.
Yeah.
You can't cook with water. You can't do dishes. And you can't, most importantly, drink to live. Nuts.
Yeah, what?
Fucking nuts, crazy, yeah. Right? Let's extend even further beyond this. About a month ago, they had a month-long notice that they had to boil all of their water because of contamination. That's crazy. That's expensive. These people are footed with crazy water bills every month.
For sure.
The pipes in Jackson constantly burst. I was reading through an article about the current issues, and it was kind of chronicling what's been going on there for the last couple of years. Yeah. Pipes routinely burst in these houses. It's a poor city. right?
Yeah.
And the city doesn't have any money to pay for this. Reasons why we'll get into, right? But anyway, pipes will burst, right? I read about this one case. This dude was a plumber. He went to someone's house. His pipe burst in his front yard. It took 4 months for the city to shut down the pipe so that the plumber could actually replace it. So that's just water bill adding up right there from the leak, right? Going on. And then he found out that the crack actually went to the city line in the road, and the guy had to pay for them to fix the asphalt and dig it up and fix the city line.
Jesus Christ.
He got footed with that bill, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You think this seems like a really shitty city. I wonder what the demographics are.
Yeah,
I wonder what the demographics are.
You
This
can
city is 82% black currently right now.
Yeah.
White flight has absolutely decimated Jackson, Missouri.
Just as it's decimated a lot of other cities.
Exactly.
As well, yeah.
Back in 1985, it used to be like a regular city, 200,000 strong. It used to be a really cool place to be from people who live there. It used to be a great city. It used to be poppin', as the kids say these days. Right,
yeah. It's those that are hip.
And then people with the higher incomes, white people, because you all know about racism already by now. White flight happened. Tax revenue was extracted from the city because, again, if you don't know how cities are funded, it's mostly based on sales tax, business tax, and utility bills. Yeah. And a couple other little minuscule things there and various grants they receive.
Yeah, and like funding from the state, which I'm sure they don't get.
Exactly. But the white flight has left it so that they cannot update their infrastructure. They just can't do it. They can't afford it. They're financially struggling.
And white flight is usually triggered by like capital flight, right? Like the property values start going up, so capital gets the fuck out of there because things start getting expensive, which triggers, the people that are economically inclined to be able to leave, because those that are left behind don't have the means to leave, right? It's the same thing that happened to Detroit.
It's like opposite gentrification.
Right.
It's basically the opposite of gentrification, white flight. So that happens, or they're just scared of black people.
Well, that too.
Let's be real.
Right.
A lot of it's they're just scared of black people. Back to the city funding. You can understand why the city doesn't have the revenue that they need to fix these pipes, to fix these water lines.
Right, the money's not there.
The money isn't there. You know where the money's going, though? All the cities around Jackson. I can't name them specifically, but in this Washington Post article, they talk about how the funds have been going to other things. And because Jackson is it's a sacrifice city, right? The conservative governor of Mississippi, does not give a shit about Jackson. The people who vote for him aren't there. So why would he divert funds there?
Right.
And this is scary considering the water crisis that they have going on right now. The only reason that people are paying attention to this now is because it's gotten so bad that they don't have water at all. For the past 20 years, they've had constant contamination notices going on. They've been gutted by water bills and utility bills just for not their fault. Like, it's not like they're taking 30-minute showers in the morning.
And it's like, that is an infrastructure problem. Individuals can't solve infrastructure problems.
Absolutely not.
One, because the regular individual isn't qualified to fix fucking water supplies. And two, the government controls that, or usually they end up outsourcing it to a private corporation that fucks them over, i.e. Texas.
But it's wild because a narrative that you're going to see about these floodings is that Democrat-run cities.
Oh my fuck.
Democrat-run cities.
Dog.
Because the mayor is a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about the mayor. The mayor was not invited to the meeting where they declared this a state of emergency.
Yeah.
His city, the problem in his city, he was not invited to the board where they're solving it. The governor is notorious for not working with this mayor at all because they're notorious for their disagreements, right?
Dog.
What's scary, Infrastructure Act, Bipartisan Infrastructure Act appropriated $50 billion in funds for water infrastructure. $429 million of that is going to Missouri. How much of that is going to make it to Jackson?
Let's say 1 million.
I don't know. Like, it's rhetorical. How much of that is realistically going to make it to Jackson?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, are they really going to do what they can to solve this? Are they going to send the funds there?
We don't take handouts.
You know what? Actually, I don't think the city of Jackson should be taking it. They need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
It's going to be the ACA all over again. Like, oh, you're giving us money to give poor people health care? No. We decline.
No, we're not. We're actually going to give it to this other city.
Yeah.
Because that's what's happened historically. But now there's national attention on it. They're going to have to do something. Obviously. The crisis it's too egregious of a thing to not do something. But is it going to be like a Flint water crisis?
Right, yeah.
Where shit is still happening today, but no one's really talking about it, you know? You know what I mean?
And no one's faced consequences for either criminally ignoring the problem or causing it.
Shout out Rick Snyder.
Yeah.
Baby, nothing happened to that guy. He ignored the crisis for his entire...
He got off. Because he was in court for it. He got off, right?
Yeah. He got off. I can't remember how exactly he got off, but nothing happened to him. Nothing's going to happen to this guy. Nothing's going to happen to any of the people who have done anything to this because it's implicit.
Yeah.
These problems persisted in Jackson implicitly, somewhat explicitly, because obviously governors are choosing to appropriate federal funds how they want, and they're going to give it to areas. Even if we cut like a racial motive, they are even if we're colorblind here, which we're not.
Yeah, of course.
You all should know now. But even if we analyze this in a colorblind way, he's gonna give money to the cities that support him. And Jackson is not one of those. And then when you add the racial element here, this is systemic racism.
Yeah.
If anyone asks you, oh, show me an example of systemic racism in the modern day, bam, Jackson, Mississippi, baby.
Exactly, yeah.
You got it right there. You don't even have to go back to redlining.
Dog. I can't, Republican states have continuously just gotten worse and worse places for people to fucking live.
Oh, yeah.
And it is always blamed on Democrat-run cities.
Uh-huh.
Brother, every city is going to be Democrat run. Every city throughout the nation is Democrat run. You know what else? Every city is a center for economic growth for that state.
Yeah.
But Republican governors and Republican state legislatures continue to refuse to invest in the infrastructure that helps those cities exist. And case in point is Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is absolutely motivated by racism. And this is a real living example of systemic racism, refusing to invest in the infrastructure that your people, a majority black city, needs in order to survive because you don't fucking care about them.
For political gain.
And the only way that you will ever react to it and solve the problem is if you can win votes electorally.
This is like unironic, not even like to tie this back in like a cheesy way to ranked choice voting. This is unironically why you need ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
To get these partisan hacks out of office, to get people in office that will actually care about people who are struggling and not just the ones that are going to vote for them.
Yeah.
Because come on now.
Yeah, I hear so much rhetoric nonstop about how awful Democratic-run cities are, how awful these Democrat states are, but it's just time and time again we hear news stories about Republican states and people in Republican states through no choice of their own just fucking suffering.
Oh, yeah.
Because of problems they can't solve themselves. Like Texas a year ago or however long ago that was, is a good example of this.
Yeah.
The millions of Democratic voters in that country, even the millions of Republican voters in that country, had nothing to do with the weatherized systems failing.
Yeah.
But they suffered nonetheless because Republicans refused to do anything about it. And then the Democrat-run cities are blamed for it? Are you fucking serious? Like, most of these problems originate at the state level because they refuse to invest in systems that people need in order to survive.
I am going to refuse to give you this aid, this prescriptive aid that you will eventually need to solve this massive crisis so that I can then say that it's your fault for the crisis happening.
Right.
This city had no possible way of getting enough revenue to do this without strangling their citizens for every cent they have. And obviously you can't fucking run a city like that. In the Washington Post article I read, again, it goes and interviews people on the streets. They all want to leave Jackson, but they can't.
You can't, yeah.
They are stuck there financially.
Yeah, the only people still there are going to be the ones that don't have the financial resources to move.
Exactly.
And because of how wealth is, distributed in this country, it's mostly going to be black and brown people that can't move because people of color in this country are disproportionately poorer than white people.
And it's just these conservative governors and these conservative people in the governor's office and running the state look at these Democrat-run cities and they say, actually, I'm not going to give you this. It's like we covered a story a couple months ago in Tennessee about, I believe it's a new Ford plant that was being built near a small city. And then as soon as the Ford plant was announced, the city, majority black, 70% black, the state comptroller said, we're actually going to remove your legal term for what makes you a city.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that's called.
And then it was placed under like emergency management or whatever.
It was placed under emergency financial management and couldn't manage its own finances. And then I think the plans were to absorb it into the white county right next to it. Nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah.
And people dare to show me a law that's racist. Show me one law that says racism.
Right. Republicans will just constantly siphon money out of these Democratic cities, or like just cities in general. You don't even need to tie a partisanship to it. They will constantly siphon money out of these cities and claim their economic growth and then blame the city for all the problems that it's facing.
Nuts.
It's insane. And they'd be like, look, Democrat-run cities facing issues that we refuse to resolve.
Like, can you believe that crime is running rampant in the city that we notoriously and continually disenfranchised?
It's like, wow, crime isn't super high in a county that 3 people live in. Obviously, it's a city. More of everything is happening in a city, you fucking idiot.
I'm going to refuse to give you guys water. Oh, you're going to do crime now?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the Democrats.
Love it.
That's the demon rats for you.
What a great system we have.
I love
if
it.
you are anywhere near Jackson, Mississippi, or you have loved ones, I hope they're doing okay. I hope you're doing okay.
Facts.
And we hope to free you from the tyranny of the Republican Party.
Exactly. That's our goal right now.
Exactly.
And then eventually from the Democrats as well, but you already know.
I think that ends the episode, though.
That does. Sadly.
Yeah, very sad.
I hope you made it to your destination if you were listening in the car.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're on your commute to work,
exactly,
or if you were trying to plan President Biden's next speech in the White House, I hope you got some good tips from this episode because I know you're going to incorporate them into your next.
Facts. I hope that on your commute to work, you didn't have to you didn't get there with 5 minutes remaining, and you think, oh my God, there's going to be so much more good hito when I get back in the car and go home, because there's not.
Yeah, no, this is
frankly,
it.
There's not. The episode's over.
Exactly. Episode's done. Goodbye.
Episode's done. Patrons.
But before we go, I want to remind you all. Head in the office store, 15% off. Hito Boys, use the promo code.
Hey, yo.
That's HITOBOYS, all capital.
Hey, yo.
In the store right now. P.O. Box open, everything in the description. And we got to thank our patrons for supporting us. We couldn't do it without you.
Ooh.
It's literally you're carrying the pod on your back. You are a hero of the podcast, and we got to give a special thanks.
My personal hero.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Special thanks to Cricket Scrapbook Layouts, Nikki Nine Lives, Kaden Kraut, Lord T, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Talia Katz, 40% Spite, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, John G, The B-Plot, Omar Zuno, Clayton Lafort, Ash Fairblood, Mark Yeager, Sarah McRoberts, Derek Messina, Dylan B, The Mind Sculptors, Kaz, Caleb Joy, Jim Bobs, Carl D, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vezkis, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Megan Latau, Jeff Muzzy, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Bagel Burrito, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. If you want to have your name shouted out, you know where to go. Headintheoffice.com, or you can go to headintheoffice.com, buy some merch.
You can.
But patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Become a patron, get early access to our episodes. Consider becoming a part of the Hito community.
You already know.
We love you. And we'll see y'all next week.
Have a great one.